Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to build a beautiful and fully responsive navbar using just HTML, CSS and JavaScript. No libraries, no frameworks. We are going to start from scratch and we're going to build it together step by step. We are going to make this smooth over effect right here with very nice transition. Now the navigation bar is going to look good for all screen sizes, even for smaller screen devices. And when I shrink this screen to small screen device, you're going to notice that we're going to have this hamburger menu icon right here. And when we click on this hamburger menu icon right here, it's going to slide out our links from the right hand side. And when we click on it again, it's going to slide it back in. By the end of this video, you have a professional looking navigation bar that's ready for any website project. Now, if you're excited about this tutorial, smash on the like button and leave a comment below. It's basically going to help the YouTube algorithm push this content to more people who are going to find it helpful. And also, it's just basically your little way of supporting the channel. And lastly, if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on helpful web development tutorials like this. Now basically I have my index.html file created, and inside my index.html file I have a div with a class of container, and I'm styling up this div with this style of CSS file right here that I'm linking to this index.html file with this line of code right here. Now inside this style of CSS file, I'm importing Google font from Google and I'm applying that font right here, Poppins. And also I have an images folder right here. Now this image is the image we are using for the background overlay, and this is the logo that we're going to use, the Tech logo we're going to use for the navigation bar. So I'm going to click on Go Live to view this project in a web browser. So I'll click on Go Live, and you can see the project opens up in our browser, and we can see this beautiful image overlay. So next we have to start working on the navigation bar. So I'm going to head over to my index.html file. Now inside this index.html file, inside this div container, I'm going to create a nav tag. For now, this nav tag is going to have two items. It's going to have our logo and it's going to have our nav link. So first of all, I'm going to add an image for our logo. I'm going to give this src, which is going to point to that logo.png file we have inside our images folder. And next, it's going to house our nav link. So I'm going to create a UL tag. I'll give this a class name of nav links. Then inside this UL tag, I'm going to create an li tag, which is going to have an anchor tag in them. And this link is not going to go anywhere, but its name is going to be home. And I'll copy that down 1, 2, 3, 4. Then this one is going to be about. The next one is going to be service. The next one is going to be FAQ, frequently asked questions. Then the last one is going to be contacts. Cool. Now let's check out the output. You can see our image in the web page right now. It's very large. So let's first of all style up this image. So I'll just add a class name to this image. I'll say class, then I'll say logo. Copy this class name. Then I'm going to head to my style of CSS file and actually style up that logo. It's basically going to have a width of 180 pixels. I'll save that. Then you can see our logo right here at the top left corner of the web page. You can see the logo right here. Now let's start styling the content of our navigation bar. So first of all, I want this logo to be around here, and I want these links to be around here. So I'm going to give them a display of flex and a justified content of space between. I want a space between them. So I'm going to come back here. Then this nav tag that's housing both the image and these links, I'm going to give it a display of flex. So I'm going to say nav. I want it to have a display of flex and a justified content of space between. And I'll also just align the item center to center the items vertically. Save that. And you can see there's now a space between this item. The logo is at the left hand side while the links are at the right hand side. So next, I'm going to add a background to this nav bar. I'm going to say background color as 005F73. Save that. And you can see we now have a background to our navigation bar. So what I want to do is that, because I don't want this logo to be at the extreme end and I don't want these links to be at the extreme end, what I want is I want the links to be around here, then I want this logo to be around here. So to do that, I'm going to give this navbar, I'm going to give it a padding top and bottom of 0 and left and right I'll say 8%. Save that, and you're going to notice that the logo is now pushed to the right hand side a little and the links are now pushed to the left hand side a little, and this is actually better. Now we are basically done styling up the logo, so let's work on styling up the links. So now I'm going to target the links. I'm going to say nav, then I'm going to make use of this class I added to this URL tag, which is nav links, nav.nav links. First of all, I want to get rid of these bullet points at the left hand side of these links right here, these little black bullet points. So I'm going to say I want to give these lists a list style, then I'll say none. Then I'm going to use that little ugly dots are no longer there. Then I want to give the item of the navigation links a display of flex. I want them to be arranged horizontally. Check it out and you can see that these links are now arranged horizontally. So let's style up the individual links this time around. So for the individual links, I want to copy this right here. I'll paste that underneath here. I just want to target the anchor tag inside these nav links. Then I'll say I want to give this a color of white. I want the color to be white, not white per se. Let me just use hash F5. I'll save that. Check it out the output and you can see our links are now white. But the navigation bar is too kind of small, so I'm going to give it a height. So up here, I'll give this nav bar, give it a height of 60 pixels. Yeah, this is way better. Now I want to get rid of this little ugly underline on this link. So to do that, I'm going to say for each of these links, I want to give it a text decoration of none. Then I want something like a breathing space between each of the links. I'm going to give them a margin. So top and bottom, you're going to have 0 pixels. Then left and right, they are going to have a margin of 25 pixels. Yeah, this is really looking good. Now what I want to work on next is that when someone hovers over this link, I want that little line animation underneath the link to show that a user is hovering over this link. So to do that, I'm going to make use of CSS pseudo element. So I'm going to copy this right here. I'll just paste that underneath here. So I'm going to add an after pseudo element to this anchor tag. So I'm going to say after. Now when I make use of pseudo element, it always have to have a content. Now in this case, our content is not going to have anything. So I'm going to just pass in an empty string right here. Then it's going to be position absolute to this anchor tag, since this anchor tag is what actually has this pseudo element. So I'm going to say position. Then I'm going to say absolute. Then left of 0. Bottom of 0, a height of 3 pixels, a background color of hash F5, and a border radius of 10 pixels. Yeah, a border radius of 10 pixels. Now coming back to the web page, you're going to notice that we cannot see that line right here. And the reason we cannot see that line is because we've not given this after pseudo class element a width property. So I'm going to give this a width. I'm going to give it a width of 100%. I'm going to save that. Coming back to the web page, we still cannot see that link. You are going to notice that that link is actually positioned right here. Underneath this our web page, you can see a little white line down here. Because since we gave this a position of absolute, it's going to assume a position of fixed, which means right now this thing is being positioned at the bottom of our web page, bottom 0, left 0, right here at the bottom of the web page. And the reason for that is because elements by default in HTML have a position of static, which means these links right here, this anchor tag right here has a position of static. And when an element has a position of static, you cannot position an element absolute to it. So to actually solve this problem, instead of we leaving this anchor tag with a position of static, we're going to say it's going to have a position of relative. That way we can position an element absolute to it. And when I save that, you're going to notice that that little underline underneath this web page will now be here in these links right here. but the line is too close to the anchor tag. Let me just add a margin between them. Since it's a pseudo element, I don't think I can add a margin, so I'll just say bottom -3 pixels. Save that. Yeah, this is way better. Now we don't want this line to be shown right off the bat. We want this line only to be shown when the user hovers on this link. So we are going to give this a width of 0%. That way we cannot see the line anymore. Then when someone hovers on this link, so I'm going to say on hover of this link. So on hover of this link, I want to give this after pseudo class a width of 100%. Then I'll save that. And when I return back to the web page and I hover on this link, you can see that that line shows when I hover on this link. But we still don't have that little smooth transition, so we have to add a transition to it. So I'm going to say this is going to have a transition of width 0.5 seconds is in out. I'll save that. Now when I return back to the web page, you can see that smooth transition when I hover on this link. Really clean. Now we're basically done with the navigation bar for large screen devices, but we have to make it responsive for small screen devices. And when we reduce the screen of this web page to smaller screen devices, you're going to notice that our navigation bar is not responsive at all. It's not responsive at all. So we have to start working on making it responsive. So what we want to do is that when it gets to smaller screen devices, we don't want these links here anymore. We want to show a menu, hamburger menu icon right here. That when we click on that menu icon, it's going to open up our menu. So that's what we want to do. So let's start working on that. So first of all, we have to add media queries to this. So down here, I'm going to add a media query, add media. And the breakpoints I want to add, I'll say max width. The breakpoint is going to be 768 pixels. And this is the breakpoints we are going to work with. And for my nav links, when the screen size is less than 768 pixels, I want to give it a background of red to actually test if this media queries is working. So when I reduce to small screen device, you're going to notice that it's going to have a background of red. You see the breakpoint right here. When it breaks to less than 768 pixels, it's going to have a background of red. So I'm going to get rid of this for now. I'm just going to give it a display of none for now. So for smaller screen device, I don't want to see it there. So next, I'm going to actually add that hamburger icon. So I'm going to go to my index.html file. So inside my nav tag, inside this nav tag, underneath this URL, so I'm going to create a div. I'll give this div an ID of menu toggle. And the reason I'm using an ID is because I also want to target it with JavaScript. Now inside this div, I'm going to have a span tag that's going to have a class name of line. Then I'll just drag that down. Save that. Now I'm going to style up this menu toggle. I'm going to copy that class. First off, I just want to give it a... Now since I make use of ID, I'm going to use £, not dots this time around. I'm going to give it a cursor of pointer. And when someone actually hovers over this button, I want it to add like a button you can click on. So I'm going to give it a cursor of pointer. Now I'm going to target that line inside those span tags. First of all, I want to give them a width of 20 pixels, a height of 2 pixels, then a background color of ash F5, F5, F5. I'll save that. And we cannot see them right here. The reason why we cannot see them is that now we are making use of span tags right here. Span tags for our line. So span tags by default are inline level elements. That's why we cannot see them. Inline level elements only occupy enough space for their contents. So if I add something, if I say hello, I'm going to notice that we are going to see that right here, hello. The reason why we could not see it initially is because they are inline level elements. So if they don't have content, they're not going to occupy any part of the web page. So we have to give them a display of block. So I'm just going to get rid of that hello text. Then in my style of CSS, so I want this line to have a display. Then I'll say block. And now you can see those lines right here, but they are too kind of close to each other. So I have to give them a margin property. So I want to give this a margin top and bottom, I want it to have a margin of 5 pixels at the top and at the bottom, then left and right of 0. And you can see them right here. They are looking better, but they are still kind of small. So I just increase the width to 25 pixels. Then increase the height to about 3 pixels. And add the border radius to it. I'll say border radius. Then I'll use 10 pixels. Yeah, this is way better. Now we don't want this hamburger icon we just created to be displayed for large screen devices. We only want this to be displayed to the UI for small screen devices. When we can no longer see these nav links right here, that's when we want this to be displayed. So what we are going to do is that we're going to give this a display of none. This menu toggle div, we're going to give it a display. Then we are going to say none. Go back to the web. You are going to notice that it's no longer there. We only have our links right here. Now next, what we are going to work on is that when we reduce this to mobile screen devices, we don't want the links like this. We want the links to be arranged vertically right here. So when we click on that hamburger menu, it's going to open up the link from the right hand side. And when we click on it again, it's going to close the link. So let's start working on that. So I'm going to head over to my media code, that breakpoint. Then I'm going to target that nav link. So I'm going to say nav, then .nav links. Now for screens that are less than 768 pixels, I want to give it a flex direction of column. Then I'll save that, check out the output. Then you're going to notice that for smaller screen devices, they are going to be arranged vertically. While for large screen devices, they are going to be arranged horizontally. You can see the breakpoints right here. Next, I want it to have a position of fixed, a top of 0, and a right of 0. And you can notice that the icons are now on the right hand side. They're not positioned at the right hand side, fixed to the right hand side. So let me give this a background color. So I'll say background color. I'll use this hex color right here. Save that. And you can notice the links right here. But I actually want the links to actually occupy the entire height. I'll give it a height of 100%. And I'll give it a width of 50%. And you can see that the nav links is occupying the entire height. That's a height of 100%, and it's occupying 50% of width. Now I want these links to be positioned at the center, so I'm going to give them an align item. So I'm going to say align items, and I'll give it center. Then that's going to help it position it right here at the center, right here. Now you're going to notice that these nav links is going to cover our hamburger icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give, instead of giving this a top of 0, I'm going to give it a top of 60 pixels. I want it to start after this navigation bar. So I'm going to say top. Instead of 0, I'm going to say 60 pixels. That way the nav link is going to start right here after this nav bar. Now next, we can add a gap to each of these links. I'm going to give it a gap of 30 pixels. And you can see they are looking really good. Now the last thing I'm going to do, this is actually optional if you want to add this, because I like it to be a little bit transparent. So I'm going to give it an opacity. I give it opacity of 0.7. That way you can actually see through the navigation bar a bit. I just like it this way. Now this is actually optional. If you don't want to do this, you can leave it with an opacity of 1, or just leave it the way it is. So next, for screen size that are less than 768 pixels, we want to display our hamburger icon up here. So I'm going to copy that class name, this menu toggle. Then for screens that are less than 768 pixels, I want to give it a display of block. I'll save that. And you can see that right now it's being displayed to the UI. When we expand to large screen devices, it's going to disappear from the screen. Then when we shrink to small screen device, it's going to appear. But we have a slight problem. When we shrink to you see this point right here, you can see that this thing actually kind of squishes a bit right here before it breaks. So we don't really want that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reduce the margin between these links. So I'm just going to go up here. So each of the links, I want to reduce them. Instead of 25 pixels, I'll just use 20. That way they don't break. Yeah, this is way better. And for large screen devices, they still look really good. Now next, we don't want these nav links to be shown like this. We only want these nav links to be shown when someone clicks on this. It's going to open up from the right hand side, and when someone clicks on it again, it's going to close back. That's what we want. So So I'm going to scroll down. Now, instead of giving this a right of 0, I'm going to give this a right of negative 20%. You're going to notice that when I do that, this thing is going to actually go into the right hand side of the screen. It's going to go off the screen by negative 20%. But what I want is I want this to be completely out of the screen. And when you click on this, it's going to appear in the screen. So instead of negative 20, I'm going to say negative 50%. Then when I save that, you're going to notice that you're not going to notice it in the UI anymore. Now what we want is that when someone clicks on this hamburger icon right here, we want this nav link to slide in from the right. So to do that, we have to add another class. So down here, I'm going to say nav.menu open. And this one is going to have a right of 0. So I'm going to copy this class, menu open, and add that class to our nav links. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to add that class right here to our nav links. And when I save that, you're going to notice that our menu is open. And when I take off the class, you're going to notice that our menu is closed. And that's what we want to do with JavaScript. We want to use JavaScript to add and remove the class. So let's do that. So first of all, we have to target this menu toggle right here. We have to target this nav links with JavaScript. So down here, I'm going to create a script tag just before my body tag. Then first of all, I have to target this menu toggle right here. So I'm going to say const menu toggle is equals to documents dot get element by ID. Now since this has an ID, I'm just going to copy that ID and use that ID to target it. I'm just pasting that ID right here. Then I have to target this nav links. Now since this does not have an ID, I'm going to make use of query selector const links is equals to documents dot query selector. Then I'll just pass in that class name right here dot nav links, which is this class right here. So down here, I'm going to add an event listener to this menu toggle. Now, when someone clicks on this button, I want to add an event listener. And the event listener is going to listen for a click event when someone clicks on the button. And when someone clicks on it, I want to run a function called open menu. So I've not created that function, so I want to create the function now. Function open menu. Now all this function is going to do is going to add this class, this menu open class. Let me just copy the menu open class. It's going to add this menu open class to these nav links right here. So I'm going to say links dot class list dot add that class. I'll paste in the class right here. Now save that. And then when I go back to the web page and I click on this, it's going to open up our nav links because it's adding that class. But the problem is that when I click on it again, it's not going to close it up. That's because we're only telling it to actually add the class. We're not telling it to remove the class. Now to tell it to actually remove the class, when we click on the hamburger icon here, we have to make use of toggle. So instead of add, I'm going to say toggle. Save that. Now when I go back to the web page, I'll click this, it's going to open it up. I'll click again, it's going to close it up. Now the last thing we're going to do is that when we click on this, we want it to actually transition, we want it to slide in, not just pop up like it is. So to do that, we have to add a transition to these nav links. So I'm going to go to this nav links style right here. So I'm going to say transition of right. Then I'm going to give it a transition of 0.7 seconds is in out. Then I'll save that. Then when I come back to the web page, when I click on this hamburger icon, it's going to slide in. When I click on it again, it's going to slide out. And that's it for this tutorial. Now, if you enjoyed this tutorial, you got some value for this, smash on the like button and leave a comment below. Just basically think of it of a way of you supporting the channel. And lastly, if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on helpful web development tutorials like this. I'll see you in the next video.